China has a problem, a $6 billion problem. $6 billion worth of funds just got frozen up in China's banks. As a result, hundreds of thousands of people began to protest in the streets of China, and the government sent out thousands of police officers to try to deter the situation. In addition to that, people stopped paying upwards of $300 billion on unfinished construction, and all the construction across China is completely frozen right now. Well, welcome back to the corporation, the best community. It's Gen Nation, and before we get into why China's economy is collapsing right before our eyes, I want to thank all you guys for smashing the like button. And for that, if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'm going to send out $150 to somebody in the comments. Now in China, real estate brokers and firms are allowed to sell homes before they're completed, and the person who buys the property has to start paying their mortgage before it's finished building. This is what helps to fund the construction process as it's being built. Now the major problem comes from the $6 billion that are frozen up in Chinese banks and stopping over 300 construction projects across all of China. And this has led to over 300 million square feet of construction halted in China. Now the reason for all these protests is the fact that the government froze any deposits going into the banks, but they also expect people to pay for the mortgages of the unfinished buildings in the process of the construction. Now, I'm no economist, but it doesn't seem like that's very ethical to me. Now, on top of that, the Chinese housing market prices are falling dramatically, over 20% down of what they were just a couple of days ago. Now, people are concerned that the United States government's slipping into recession, but China just said, hold my beer. Now, China's a communist party, which means they have the ability to censor anything that's posted online and control of everyone's finances. Now, over 400,000 Chinese bank accounts were frozen, and the mistrust of the Chinese government's at an all-time high and expected to go even higher after this news broke. It seems that the suspects are the reason behind this controlled several different bank accounts under one group company and used a third-party financial product platform to collect deposits and use fake loans to transfer the funds illegally to their accounts. Now, this has only happened in 5 banks across China, but the government decided to freeze all the funds because it could happen across thousands in the entire country. That means if someone made a $2,000 deposit, they would keep around $200 in the bank and loan the remaining $1,800 out and receive interest on the money. And when the person spends that money, it goes back to the bank and they would pull out $198 and rinse and repeat that process. This creates a money multiplier for the bank and hypothetically gives them a significant ROI. Now, the problem with this is the government made money out of thin air with this process because there isn't any real money going directly into the bank. And when individuals went to go withdraw money to the ATM, it said that they can't withdraw any funds because the government didn't have the money to give back out. Now, the banks in the Henan province were subject to fraud by the owner of the Henan fortune. Now, the price of the Chinese housing market over the last decade has increased by 13.1% year over year in the 4 major cities, including Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. This put homeowners in the new generation prioritizing property purchasing because it would put them in a significant return on their investment automatically, or so they thought. Now, the Chinese Communist Party saw an opportunity to make way more money by adding a model where people would start paying their mortgage before the housing was even completed. And at the time, people were willing to pay that because they saw that there was a 13.1% hike in the price of the houses per year. Now, the Chinese National Bureau of Statistics put out some numbers that 35% of these pre-sales were based on the entire fact that this construction was fueled by the people's money that they were paying their mortgages with. They would then take the pre-sale money and use it to sell more pre-sale homes in an exact Ponzi scheme structure. Now, we all know from watching my other videos that the Ponzi scheme structure doesn't work, but for a while it did, only because the prices of the houses kept increasing. Once the housing market began to collapse, the government didn't actually have enough money to pay for the house that the individual gave all the money for the mortgage to. So I guess you could say the housing bubble is officially popped in China. Now, all of this happened through the development of a company called Evergrande, which is on the brink of a default, believe it or not. And this could actually cause a huge problem for businesses in the United States. Since the United States imports from China account for over 21% of overall US imports, the problem with China is a lot bigger than what it seems. The Chinese Communist Party's also removed lending restrictions for property developers, which is like printing more money to solve inflation. Now, with the property developers not having enough money to pay off these constructions, it's showing in full transparency how the entire Chinese Communist Party is getting exposed. Now, this is why I'm a huge fan of cryptocurrency and large-scale decentralization. In a communist society, the Chinese Communist Party has full control over the freedom of speech and their financial well-being, and just demonstrated that they used both to their advantage and their own financial gain. They censored the riots across Chinese news stations and YouTube, stole their money through bank fraud, and are now only repaying citizens up to $7,500 for potentially losing their entire life savings. Now, switching to a decentralized banking platform where nobody has any jurisdiction over anybody else's money would completely solve this problem. This entire Chinese economic collapse could just be one big infomercial for why adopting Ethereum would make sense. So for example, one smart contract could be written between a homeowner and a construction company. A certain amount of Ether could be paid out to the construction company when they get certain amounts of the process of the construction done. Now, this would be a perfect way to ensure that the construction was getting done and make sure the construction company was getting paid for their work. These self-operating computer programs would run exactly how they're coded and mitigate any chance of fraud like the Chinese citizens experienced. Well, thank you for coming to the corporation, the best community. It's Gen Nation. And if you want to be kept up to date, make sure to drill the subscribe button and check out Cascades Academy because it did an amazing breakdown of the entire Chinese economic crisis. Feel free to follow me on Instagram and sign up for my company lecture down below for a chance to win up to $200 free of my product. And remember, we're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video.